Hello, hello, hello. Howdy.
Hi, Mark. Got a lot of light behind me here, so I'm trying to figure out how to get myself in here just the right way.
Yeah, looking good.
Right, I'm a little washed out.
You're a little washed out?
With all this light. I wonder if that's the light.
You are in the light, Glenn.
So is it good enough to do this way, or should I try to fix the lighting somehow?
Yeah, we're being kind of experimental. We're checking stuff out, and just want to be able to kick off this whole series on enterprise sales. And obviously, we're going to be doing a whole lot of these going forward. And I thought it would be really good just to start off at the basic levels, because one of the things we're going to do is have this whole conversation on enterprise sales, the beginning with the messaging and the prospecting, talking about how to manage deals, how to close deals, even some of the post stuff in terms of delivery and customer satisfaction. But we want to just set the tone, and I just want to ask, what do you think about enterprise sales? What exactly do we mean when we say, I'm an enterprise sales rep, or we do enterprise deals at our startup? What is that?
Well, so, it's funny. Enterprise sales is a term that we use a lot, but perhaps we don't examine very carefully. And it turns out it's got a couple of different aspects to it that I think make an enterprise sale an enterprise sale. One is it's a complex sale. And that means you're selling a product that multiple people have to decide to buy. That's what makes it complex. The nature of the sale itself, not the product, but the actual nature of the buying motion that's going on in an organization and the way you must engage. And so now other people will tell you that that's just a complex sale, but I would say that's what an enterprise sale is. Now, what an enterprise sale also connotes is that you're doing something larger than just a very simple solution that touches one stakeholder. So in a way, it's talking about complexity again, but more on the impact, right? So you might have a complex decision-making process, but let's say you're selling fire extinguishers for their facilities and an inspection program. So for somebody's 60 offices, that you go in and make sure the fire extinguishers are up to date. There's not many stakeholders affected by that. There's not much ripple through for the enterprise, right? It's kind of
it seems very transactional almost.
Yeah, it's transactional, exactly. That's a good way to think about it. So an enterprise sale usually affects multiple stakeholders. So not only are there multiple people involved, by the way, there's more people involved than are stakeholders, right? Like procurement's not actually a stakeholder in a CRM solution, yet they're part of the complex sale, right? So in CRM, you have sales and marketing that are operational stakeholders, and then you have executive leadership that are also stakeholders because they're going to be consuming the output out of a CRM environment. So it's a little bit of an imprecise decision, and if you really step back and think about it, it's complex in terms of the buying process and the impact, right? Okay. So that's what I think makes an enterprise sale, and yeah, I hope that gets us somewhere.
So just to kind of get down to the core of it. So when we talk about enterprise sale, we're saying that's complex, and it doesn't mean necessarily the product or the solution, but really looking at it from the buyer's perspective almost. Like, are they a more complex organization in terms of how they take in a product and solution? And are there multiple people that are involved in that process that may take a certain X amount of time, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's actually really clear, because I think a lot of people get confused as to, is it a number of employees in a company, or is it the Fortune 1000? But that's actually not that's not really true, is it?
No, it's not. And and I've been evolving in how I think about this too. You know, most of my work is with emerging technology companies. And it turns out a lot of SaaS companies sell products to other SaaS companies, right? I actually sell to a lot of emerging technology companies as well. And when you think about an emerging technology company, a SaaS company, like say, just a company I know very well, SnapLogic. I have friends who work there, right? They make decisions like a small, big corporation, not like a big, small business, even though they're on maybe a $50 million a year run rate, right? So they are behaving more like a large corporation in terms of how they buy. And what are those things? So there's planning processes, there's budgeting processes, there's a procurement organization. A simple sale is more like when you're selling to a small business where it's owned by a single proprietor. So another way to think about this is the ownership structure of an organization is really what drives whether it's enterprise sales. Because if you have a single, right, it's because you've got stakeholders, representatives, agents of, there's a lot more due diligence how the capital is deployed because of the nature of that agent relationship. When you have a sole proprietor, they put all the capital in, they own the business, like a plumbing supply house, or my friend who owns 8 bakeries, right? He has some people who work for them, but he is the ultimate decision maker on everything financial, and it's his money, and there's no board to answer to. There's no venture capitalists, right? He doesn't have a CEO who's acting as his agent. He's CEO, chairman, and owner of that business, right? So that's a simple process, even though it's in a larger organization. He's got 350 people working for it, right? So it's not a small company by a lot of definitions, but it's actually a simple sale. Yeah.
Right. And vice versa, you could also probably say the opposite. You can be working with a big, huge corporation, be dealing with a very small department with a very basic type of tool or product, or you're a consultant going in doing some very basic work. And even if you may have to go through procurement, or there may be a sign off or two, it seems like that's pretty basic. You're not really impacting the organization that much.
Right. And so what you point out is the imprecision of the use enterprise, right? Sure. Because it could be, if it's truly something a single stakeholder group requires, right? Or has, it's really self-contained, something that's, I'll give you a simple example. The Christmas party for the New York office of your company. There's a budget given to you. Now, it turns out you've got to go through this approval process that has other people in the organization, your betters and financial people. Right. But like the decision where to hold your Christmas party is solely driven by your local office, right? So that would be a simple decision in terms of the stakeholders, because you don't have a cross-functional team making the evaluation, right? Nobody from any other offices or departments care, right? But so it's still happening in a complex environment where there could be blocks that come up while they try to get this approved, right? So, and of course, when we're selling technology and business solutions, usually there are multiple stakeholders. Yeah. So, so I think another point is, why do we make the point enterprise sales, or what an enterprise sales is? We want you to think in terms of how the customer behaves buying, and what the impact is on the organization, not you and your product, right?
Well, it's so much the case. We always think about ourselves and our sales process and our products, but really, to your point, we got to think about the buyer perspective. And so I guess just wrap this up in terms of what the enterprise sale is. Let's stop thinking about numbers of employees or revenue or level on the Inc. 1000 or Fortune 1000, but rather think about the impact to the organization and the multiple numbers of stakeholders that are going to be involved in that buying process. And that's actually what's going to determine the complexity and thus how truly of an enterprise solution you're bringing to bear when you have those discussions and engage with a customer.
Yeah, and in the end, the last thing to really, I say, to think about, to put a capstone on this, is to think about how you organize for it. What are your expectations? What are you anticipating will happen in a sales process? So if you have stakeholders that across multiple groups and you haven't met half of them, the chances are your deal isn't going to close, right? So the point is that there's these uncovered bases. One of the biggest things you find that's missing from most sales campaign is what we call the uncovered base, which is some buying force that's involved in your campaign that has a stake that you haven't met with, that you haven't spoken with, that you maybe relied on your coach or your champion to go speak to, and you often find these people become blocked. So the point is not to know that there's complexity. The real point of this is to act in a way that deals with the complexity and anticipates the complexity, right? So how do you engage clients and prospects in a way that anticipates their complexity and anticipates multiple stakeholders and understands what their likely concerns will be and how to win them over? Because it'd be very different. The perspective on CRM, for example, from marketing is very different from the perspective on sales on CRM. Right? So I think that's the whole point of understanding this.
All right. This has really been awesome, Glenn. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on what the enterprise sale is. I think it's a common question, particularly a lot of startup founders are wondering, like, what exactly is that, different than other types of sales. But no, this was really clear. And hopefully in our next follow-up sessions, we can talk a little bit more about maybe how you structure that enterprise sale team and what exactly you might be doing differently to enable that type of more complex sale. But for now, thanks for coming to the Enterprise Sales Meetup BLAB session on enterprise sales. And
this is awesome. This is going to be great. I really enjoy doing this. And maybe next time I won't be with like a spotlight on my head. So I'm so
No, Glenn, you are showing us the light. This is glorious. You are the light of enterprise sales. All right.
Here we go. Okay, great. Thanks.
Bye.